2019 was an enormous year for Disney films, filled with almost non-stop hits, future classics, and box office destruction. Disney took out the record for most number of billion-dollar films released by a single studio in a single year, with a current 6 and a 7th in Rise of Skywalker highly likely, and additionally celebrated their best year at the box office ever, taking in over $10 billion, a record for any studio, and also releasing the highest grossing film of all time worldwide. 2019 offered the usual selection of Disney goodness, a handful of epic and nostalgic live-action remakes, stunning and exciting animated adventures, enormous blockbusters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and a new trip into that galaxy far, far away. As we round out the year, it's time to look back and rank all 10 theatrically released Disney films from 2019 from worst to best. That said, I won't be including any Disney Plus releases here as I'll reserve them for another time. Likewise, I would find it incredibly hard to rank Disney Nature Penguins against the rest. I will though, for good measure, include Disney's collaboration with Sony, Spider-Man Far From Home. Before we get into my ranking, don't forget to weigh in with yours down below in the comments, but as always, please remain civil. Also, don't forget to give this video a like as it does wonders in getting my content out there. At that, let's get into it. Kicking us off at number 10, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. This is a visually gorgeous film and easily one of the most stunning in the live-action reboot franchise so far, with beautiful imagery at almost every step of the way. The movie tells a wonderful story and has a clear, meaningful message at its heart as it touches on themes such as love, acceptance, empathy, equality, and family. Best bit is, it's told in a way that doesn't come off incredibly overt or preachy, something that Disney has struggled with in previous years. It also feels a lot freer than the first, moving away from source in welcome new directions, with bigger, grander elaborations on stories and characters in perfectly organic ways. Maleficent and Aurora see fantastic character growth, and each and every supporting character has a surprisingly well-fleshed arc. That said, Mistress of Evil has a lot to juggle. There's so much going on that it becomes fairly muddled narratively. It's easy to get lost in the numerous plot threads and overall spectacle. That said, there's nothing incredibly special or unique about the movie, and while well-meaning, it does often feel quite vacuous. No, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. 9. Dumbo. Yet another middle-rung live-action remake from Disney. Stretching out the original 63-minute story into a 2-hour runtime was both a blessing and a curse. The movie relies on a larger presence of human characters and non-talking animals in an effort to be more believable and relatable. While this works for the most part, it does bring some big, complex narrative issues to a fairly simple story. I love that Dumbo is essentially only a remake for about half of its runtime, with the second half playing out as the sequel we never got. This is one Disney remake that takes a great deal of artistic liberties. However, the more story and characters that got bundled into it, the longer-winded and more problematic it became. Between every great expansion and fantastic new character are moments that feel like they drag too much in their efforts to add something. It's a beautiful film with a lot of the original's heart and soul and a whole new charm and pizzazz of its own thanks to gorgeous visual design by Tim Burton's team, but its slow momentum and overblown moments are tough to chew. Again, Dumbo was simply one that, while enjoyable, didn't really leave an everlasting mark. 8. Aladdin. Yet another 2019 remake which I felt left a lot to be desired. Musical numbers did not work for me, lacking the emotional gravitas of those in the animation, and each and every one almost felt forced, with the movie coming to a screeching halt to make a show out of them, instead of allowing them to flow seamlessly. Newly added songs, characters, and subplots didn't work for me either, all feeling shoehorned for the sake of adding new stuff to an already jam-packed, tight little narrative, and expanding on stuff that really didn't need expanding in the first place. That said, I admired the way Aladdin stayed so true to source while making an effort at least to do something new, even if it didn't pay off every single time. Overall, the movie is light and charming, and while the acting isn't great, the characters are mostly lovable and charismatic. Will Smith is brilliant as the genie, and I think delivers the standout performance out of this year's roster of films, and Naomi Scott completely steals the spotlight in her scenes. While I didn't love it, I found it enjoyable enough, and it's so inoffensive that I have no issues with its existence. Just a little sad that I was left wanting something a bit more spectacular. 7. Frozen 2. I found Disney Animation's 2019 offering a little bit lackluster. I felt it lacked any real narrative depth, with a story that had little thread and is predictable at every turn, ultimately ending up slow and sluggish at times. That said, I loved the deeper, darker, more mature exploration of this world and its characters, and found its character examinations and story developments first class. It certainly ushered the franchise into a less sickly direction, but understandably, there's a certain line it never surpasses, leaving me just wishing it had pushed a little harder and took a little more risk. The animation, however, is absolutely stunning and easily the best I have ever seen. Elements are lifelike, textures are incredible, and colors are gorgeous. Certain musical sequences are even some of the best visually, I think, in any CG animated Disney film ever. While I don't love the movie narratively, it's undeniably a visual feast, and one I'll happily rewatch numerous times just to sink into its gorgeous animation over and over again. 6. Captain Marvel. The first MCU release of the year was a surprisingly relatively small-scale offering, an incredibly safe movie which almost exists purely to tie together plot threads and fill small gaps left open in previous installments, offering admittedly great fan service and spectacular world building in an effort to open new possibilities for future storytelling. Released towards the end of Phase 3, Captain Marvel feels like it has the genetic makeup of a Phase 1 movie. Again, it's smaller, it's less ambitious, and narratively fairly simple. That said, I thought it worked well in the movie's favour, offering an easy trip into the MCU before the big daddy of them all, Endgame, destroyed each and every one of us. Overall, I found Captain Marvel to be fun and exciting, and while not feeling like it offered too much original to the table, I appreciated its efforts to tell a reasonably grounded superhero story. The cast is fun and entertaining, and many of the action sequences are a whole lot of fun. It's a middle-tier Marvel effort for me, but one that I'd happily revisit occasionally. 5. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Perhaps Disney's most disappointing effort of 2019 in relation to my excitement and hype levels going in, and easily the safest entry in the entire Star Wars saga. Rise of Skywalker finds itself so desperate to be loved by its audience and backtrack on everything that made The Last Jedi so divisive that it completely undermines itself with overt fan service, course correction, and the inability to make big, bold, brave moves, becoming nothing more than a paint-by-numbers entry and a highly predictable finale that ends exactly where many predicted it would 4 years prior. There are some good things in here, certain character arcs round out nicely and satisfactorily, and it offers some of the biggest and most mind-blowing set pieces in Star Wars history and moments we've been dying to see for years. However, overall, it feels like an enormous cop-out, filled with disappointing moments and ridiculously stupid narrative movements, sadly closing out the Skywalker saga on an enormous fizzle, though it does come in ahead of Disney's many other lackluster efforts of the year for me. 4. The Lion King. Easily one of Disney's most controversial releases of the year, The Lion King copped quite a bit of flack as one of the safest Disney remakes so far. Songs, dialogue, and story are all the same with scarce minor tweaks. Though some artistic liberties are taken, it's essentially the same movie over again, just told with new technology, but therein lies its bravery. Where some remakes show bravery by going in completely new directions, Lion King shows it by staying on the same course despite audience expectations. All these elements are so inherent to the original movie. They are what made it so special, unique, and iconic. Things that simply cannot be changed, altered, or removed majorly, or else it just isn't The Lion King. I had an incredibly enjoyable time with it and adored the filmmaker's efforts to bring this story, which has been with me for 25 years since I was 3 years old, to new generations in new ways, utilizing incredible groundbreaking technology that had me in complete awe, somehow experiencing a movie I've watched 100 times, almost as if for the first again. 3. Spider-Man: Far From Home. Easily my favourite of the modern Spidey flicks and a truly fun and entertaining MCU installment. As a bright and punchy palette cleanser to the dark and depressing Avengers Endgame, it sidesteps any of the darker tones often explored in Spidey flicks, doing a wonderful job at delivering a highly vibrant, exciting, and spectacular high fantasy comic book action adventure, the kind of which it's almost impossible not to be left smiling from beginning to end. With MCU best mind-blowing and mind-bending action sequences, performances that leave you clenched tightly to the edge of your seat. The film and its villain are complex and intriguing, but it isn't afraid to dip into comedy and stimulating fantasy, jumping between enormous superhero epic and teen rom-com. Far From Home once again delivers a unique MCU adventure and a fantastically toned and styled Spider-Man film. It's comic book escapism in its truest form, becoming by default one of Disney's best efforts of the year, because let's be honest, this movie was more Disney than Sony. 2. Toy Story 4. Considering the perfect ending of Toy Story 3, many doubted the need for a 4. However, it ended up one of the best installments in the franchise. The movie feels like a coda or epilogue to the original trilogy that expands upon ideas and explores themes that were never truly fleshed out before. It takes loose ends and ties them up satisfactorily, diverging into the ramifications of the third's finale and closing that last tangle of emotion that seemed brushed over. Naturally, it takes a reduced approach on a smaller, somehow more emotional scale, becoming the most existential and passionate piece in the franchise. Despite this, it still feels like Toy Story, with great action, brilliant new characters, the same grand adventure, and some incredible comedy that lives up to, and sometimes even outshines, anything from the originals. The love and care that went into this movie is obvious, with a heartfelt, emotionally captivating story told through spectacular animation. And now for my number one favourite Disney release for 2019, Avengers Endgame. It's hard to ignore Marvel's grand epic as the crowning jewel of Disney's 2019 slate. Not only an immense achievement financially, but one creatively as well. Endgame continued to prove that patience and longevity are absolute key when it comes to world building and grand storytelling. The movie mashes up scores of characters and multiple franchises, culminating them in a way completely unprecedented in the history of cinema. Stories come to a head, some come to an end, with a definitive closure, gorgeously tying loose ends and paying off mysteries left open for years. The movie is a pure love letter to fans who devoted and invested so much time into the franchise. Yes, there is a load of fan service, but a ton of beautifully told emotional storytelling at its core. For those of us who've been there from the beginning, it was the most perfect and satisfying ending we could have ever asked for. It's quite simply the cinematic event of my lifetime on a scale never seen before, and for pulling off such an incredible, monumental, and almost impossible and unbelievable feat, Endgame is easily Disney's best of the year. And at that, it's over to you guys. How did you feel about Disney's 2019 slate? Did you love it, or did you think it was just a little bit meh overall? I think I'm somewhere in the middle there. Fire away in the comments below with your own thoughts and rankings, but as always, once again, please stay civil down below. If this is your first time viewing one of my videos and you'd like to see more like it in the future, then please don't forget to hit that big old subscribe button up on your screen, as well as that like button down below for that little extra support. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic day.